For this demo, we will be creating an architectural space, in this case, a hallway with a bend in it. And around the bend, we will have this anamorphic illusion set up that when viewed in a static mode is kind of hard to see, but when the animation starts, you'll see that it comes together periodically into a legible face. So for the first step, we're going to make the architecture for the scene. And for the second step, we are going to make so for the first step, we are going to make the architecture, and for the second step, we will make our rotating anamorphic sculpture. Okay, so keep in mind here, I'm going to do some specific architectural scene. I'm going to do a specific type of sculpture, but you can really build anything you want. I'm just kind of giving some ideas here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this website, Ambient CG. Here, we just go to the homepage here. It's just ambientcg.com. And we are going to go to PBR surfaces and we'll pick some materials for our scene. I think this concrete material right here looks great already. So here you can see at the end of the address, it says concrete 047A. Now, the add-on we're about to use is explained in the previous demo. So if you are a little lost with what's going on, check out the previous demo and then come back to this. So now we will go to the shading section and we'll press the letter N for the N menu. And we'll scroll down here to ambient fetcher, ambient CG fetcher, and we'll delete rock, paste in concrete, and I will go with 2K for resolution, and we'll do fetch and create material. And there it says material has been created. Great. So now we'll go back to the website, and I think I'd like another, go with this checkered floor, tiles 12, fetch and create material. Great. So we've got concrete and tiles have been created. So we'll just go back to layout now. We're all good to go. All right, so we will now go to our units over here in scene properties, and we'll change them to imperial. Press the letter N, so we've got our N menu here, and now we're ready to get to work. So we'll press Tab, Edit Mode, 3 for Face Select. Now we'll press G for Grab, Z for Z-axis, and hold down the Control key, not the Apple Command key, just the Control key, and we'll snap that on to the floor. That's looking good. So we'll just use this. So let's look at the dimensions here. So if we go back to here, this is 6 feet tall. So we'll scale it up a little bigger. Let's maybe go to around 12 feet. That looks good. And now we'll just make kind of like an L-shaped room to extend this. So we'll click here and I'll press E, extend the hallway out that way. And then here, I'll extend the hallway again. Now I'll press A to select all, click on the Z gimbal here, and I'm going to move this scene. So the reason I'm moving it is when we put this in VR, the player is going to start here and then they can kind of walk around and navigate their way. All right, that's looking pretty good. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to press 2 for edge selection. We're going to hold down the Option key and click on these edges on the outside. So I'm going to hold down Option and Shift and click along. I could also just press Shift and click on all these edges. You might be wondering why not use face select and just select the whole top scene. And the reason for that is we want to select the outer edges. We do not want to select these two edges here. So now that we've selected those edges, we're going to press Command, and this is in edit mode. We'll press Command or Control B, and now we can bevel that down. I kind of want to give our ceiling like a nice curved edge at the top, so we'll scroll up with 2 fingers and kind of give that a nice smooth curve going along. Great. Now we're going to do the same thing for the floor. So we'll select around the edges, getting all the way around, but leaving those inner ones. We'll press Command B again. And now I'm going to scroll down on them with the mouse, with the mouse wheel or 2 fingers on the trackpad. So I just have a hard edge on the bottom. We're just going to come up a little bit. Great. So here you can see this is starting to turn into a hallway. Of course, we're looking at it from the outside in, but we'll get in there soon. The next thing we want to do is we want to select the bottom here. So I'm going to press 3 for face select. I'm going to select these 3 panels here, and I am going to press Shift and D for duplicate. Press Escape to drop those right where they are. Now I'm going to press the letter P on the keyboard. And this command is separate. So we could also search and type separate and separate selection. And you can see this floor is now in red. Now that we've done that, we want to go to our scene collection here and take the cube and rename it to hall. And we want to take cube one, this piece we duplicated, and call it nav. So this extra plane we've created will be our nav mesh. So that'll dictate where you can walk. Now, the next thing I think that we should do is we'll select, I mean, again, it's all optional, but we're going to select these larger faces here and right click and choose the option subdivide. We'll open this little subdivide menu. My face is blocking it. We'll open this subdivide menu and we will subdivide them a few times. So I'll go with 5. So now we've got all this extra mesh information. And what is that for? So I want to create some places, maybe create some windows or something so the space isn't too claustrophobic. So I'm going to press Control R or Command R for the loop cut function. And then I'll scroll and get a bunch of cuts there. That looks good. And now that I have those cuts, I'm just going to put windows on this hallway and not on the other one. I'm going to select every other panel on each side. They can be across from each other or not. This time I staggered them. And again, this is all aesthetic. You can do this however you want, of course. Now I'm going to press the letter I for inset, and you'll see that it insets these. And now we kind of have some cool little windows here. So having created those, I'll just press X and delete those faces. And now we got some little windows looking at our scene. I'm also going to go ahead to the scene menu and hide the nav mesh. So now we're ready to add materials to this scene. And we're still going to work on the outside because it's just kind of easier to see. And we'll get inside it soon. You know, you can see we can just kind of zoom and navigate our way in there. It is starting to look like a little space in here. So it is coming along. But it's easier to work on it from the outside. So we're going to press the letter Z on the keyboard and switch to material preview. We'll select this L-shaped thing. I'm going to stay in object mode now. And I'll select this little material tab here. And then there's drop down, and there's our materials we've added. So we'll add concrete to our scene. And as you can see, it looks absolutely terrible because it's conforming to the UV map, which is kind of the designation of how the material covers it, only on the original faces of the cube. Everything else is kind of stretched and distorted where we extruded, but that's okay. We're going to press plus here to add a second material. We're going to drop down and choose tiles. And as you can see, we don't see anything yet. So now we'll press tab and we'll go into edit mode. And looking at the bottom of this piece, we're going to select all of the floor. So we're just going to go around and select all those floor panels. Looking good. And now here in this material tab, I'm going to select the tiles and choose this option, assign. So they look terrible, but trust me, they're tiles. So to fix all these textures everywhere, there's a manual way to do UV editing, but that's a little advanced for this demo. So instead, in edit mode, we're just going to press A to select all. We're going to type U for UV unwrapping. And we're going to choose Smart UV Project and just go the default settings. And now you can see it looks good. It's just that everything is very big. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. So to affect that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the UV editing tab. And we're going to hover over the section with our model. We're going to press Z, hit material preview so we can see it. And then we'll go to the side with the materials and we'll zoom out. We'll press A, and there's all the parts of our scene. And we're just going to press S and just scale them really big. Just keep going big, 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 big. You'll be hard pressed to go too big. And now you can see our materials look pretty good. So we'll go back to layout and we've got our scene. So if we were, for instance, we could line up with the x-axis here and then go into walk mode, hold down shift, walk in here using the WSASD controls. So just to remind you, walk mode is shift tilde, or you can search walk. And now you can see we've got our little room and we can walk around inside it. So architecture, I think, is looking, whoops, went through the wall there. Architecture is looking pretty good. So just to review, you can press shift tilde or you can press the space bar and type walk and click on walk navigation to get into this mode. I'll just stay right here. So in object mode, I'm going to select the room. I'm going to go to modifiers. I'm going to add a modifier. I'm going to search. And the modifier I'm going to add is solidify. And then we'll thicken. You can see inside the window wells, especially. We'll thicken the space, give it a little substance, and add another modifier. I'm going to search. I'm going to choose this one, bevel, which you can see has kind of added a little smoothness to those edges. And then a quick way to apply both of these at the same time is I'll click on the mesh here and I will press spacebar for search and I'll type convert and convert to mesh. So it is a mesh, but converting it to a mesh anyway applies all the modifiers. And we've got this whole little architectural scene. And in case we don't have time to put this in A-frame, I loaded the background into Blender too. So here, if we switch to the scene world, we can see, oops. Now that we switch to scene world, you can see that we can even look out the windows. That's looking pretty good. So you don't need to worry about setting up a scene world in Blender because that's part of the A-frame template. Of course, if you want to change that, we'll learn how to do that soon. Okay, so we've made our hallway, and now it's time to make our sculpture. So I'm gonna press Shift C. So we're looking at our whole scene, and we can make a sculpture in millions of different ways. I think I'm going to make something inspired by a combination of an upside down bar stool and a vase. And you'll see how I do that in a moment. So I'll press Shift A, and I will add a cylinder. I will now press the slash key, which shares with the question mark. So that's the only thing I'm looking at. There we go. And I'll press Tab for edit mode. So as I've been doing with everything, I like to have stuff with the origin point at the bottom and it's on the floor. So I'm gonna press G for grab, Z for Z axis, hold down Control, and put the cylinder on floor level. I know I do that in like every demo, but I think, sometimes repetition can be helpful. Now I'm gonna select the top face, and if you're not selecting faces, just press the number 3, 1 for points, 2 for edges, 3 for faces. And I can press G for grab, Z for Z axis, and bring that right down low. So here's the base for our sculpture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press I for inset. I'm going to inset in just a little bit like that. And yeah, we're done. So I'll still in face select. I'm going to maneuver the mouse so it's kind of like right between two of those seams. And I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key on Windows and click. And now I get that loop selection all the way around. Then I'm going to hit spacebar for search and I'm going to type the word checker. And here we have checker deselect. It's really helpful so you can see it just deselected every other face there. So now that I've done that, I'm going to press E and extrude this up just a little bit. And the reason I did just a little bit is I'm going to have sort of a circle of columns, kind of like legs on an upside down stool, but I want them to have segments so I can distort them. So now that I've just done it a little bit, I'm going to do the repeat command. So Shift and R, and I'm just going to keep pressing that. So Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, and I went too tall. That looks good. So now to give these kind of a cool twist to them, I'm going to click here to turn on proportional editing. I can also hit the O key on the keyboard, and I'm going to hit R for rotate, Z for Z axis. You can see I got my scrolling to change the size of that circle of influence, and we're just going to twist those around. Great. And now I want some of these, so I'm going to actually, well, let's see. Okay, so I'll press S for scale, bring that in a little bit, so it's kind of like a vase, but I kind of want this is pretty, but I kind of want it to be a little more regular. So I'm going to hit spacebar and repeat the checker deselect command. It doesn't like it because they're not touching, the faces aren't touching each other. So I guess what I will do is I will just do it manually. So I'll select every other face, or you know what? I might even skip two. So I'll select one, skip two, skip two, skip two, skip two. Oops, that didn't work because now I got 3. I didn't do the math here. All right, I'll just skip one. All right, we got those. And now I'm going to press S for scale and bring down the influence and kind of bring those out a little bit. I'm seeing that because of the way proportional editing works, it doesn't really do the job. So maybe I just won't worry about that. To give this maybe a little more dimensionality, I'm going to click on that face at the bottom. I'm going to press I and inset right down into the middle. And then I'll press E and scale up a column from the middle. And then I'm going to press 1 for point select. I'm going to press M for merge, or I can search merge, and I'm going to merge these at the center. So we've got kind of like a sharp point in the middle of this thing. And now I'll press slash, and there's our sculpture inside the scene. Now, a really useful thing is we can hide the hall and show our nav mesh. And this nav mesh is what's going to constrain our movement when we export this for VR. But the nice thing about this is we can also use it to arrange our furniture or sculptures in the space without distraction of the room itself. I'm going to turn off this background. Okay, so now I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to add an image. We're in object mode, mesh plane, and I'm going to add this image here, which I've named image, import image. There it is. If it doesn't look like an image, it means you might be in solid view. So just press Z and switch to material view. And then I'll just go ahead and delete that image. Great. So now I want this sculpture to be at the end of this hallway so that I kind of, or in this hallway somewhere. So I have to walk to this hallway to see it. So I'll press the Z axis on the gimbal here. I'll just grab this sculpture and I'll move it to about there. It's a good place for it. Also, just for fun, so I have a few other objects in the scene. Maybe I'll add a cube. There it is. I'll press G to grab, Z for Z axis, hold down control, bring it up to floor level, Shift D, Z, so it's going up, hold down control again, so it snaps to the top of the other one, and then maybe rotate on the Z axis, so R and then Z, so they're not lined up quite perfectly. Then I'll select both of those and maybe move this cube over here, because if the space is too empty, you can kind of lose yourself. All right, so still in material mode, I'll go to the material tab, and for these cubes here, I'll just make them concrete. Do the same thing because we already have that material. So they'll be made of the same material as the wall, looking fine. And for the sculpture here, that's another story. So I'm going to lock in on the y-axis. And now I'll zoom in a little bit just using the pinch spread command, get us a little closer to the scene. And now I'm going to turn the hallway back on, and I'm going to turn on the walk mode, search, walk navigation, so that I'm kind of navigating around in this space again with the WASD controllers. So here we are in our space, and we can slip out and get a view of this sculpture. So I'll click here, and now let's work on this sculpture. So I'm going to click on the drop-down menu, and I'm going to choose image. So there's our image on the sculpture. And on this sculpture, I'm going to press S for scale and scale it up nice and big. I'm also going to press G for grab, Z for Z axis because it's a little bit off the floor. So I'll put it down on the floor. Looking good. So now in the timeline down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point at the sculpture here, and I'm going to press, it's also selected, the letter I, which creates a keyframe. I'm going to forward this timeline to 120, and then here on the rotation in the N menu, and if you don't have that menu, letter N brings that up. For the Z rotation, I'm going to type 360, and now you can see it's turned orange to show that I changed something. And I'm going to press the letter I on it. So now there's a keyframe for rotation there. Now you can see here it says start 1 and 250, but our animation only goes to 120. So I'll switch that number to 120. And now if I hit play, we can see our sculpture is rotating. But we're not really getting an anamorphic effect. But using the same technique in the last demo that we did to conform the skull to the cube, we're going to press Tab for edit mode, A for select all. I'll put 3 for face selection. I don't know if that's important or not. I'm going to press U, and now we're going to do project from view, bounded. And now I'll go back to object mode, and I'll deselect that face. So you can see now the face looks perfect from this angle, but when we animate it, the pieces fall apart, but then the back and front pieces line up again when it comes together. All right. So I'll press Shift C, so we're outside the room again. Kind of get a peek at the cool animation going on inside. Very cool. And I'll just pause this animation now because it's a little distracting. And now we're going to export this. So to export this, we're going to go to our scene collection, and we want to select this option that says nav. So we don't need cameras or lights actually. So we can select our camera, press X to delete it. We can set our light, X to delete it. And then this one that says nav, we will hide it so it's not there anymore and select anything else in the scene. Now we'll go to File, Export, GLTF, and we'll choose where we're exporting this to. Put it in here. And we call the scene model, and we go to include, and we want to include visible objects. So that means not the nav mesh. And then in the animation tab here for animation mode, we're going to do active animations merged. And then we'll click export glyph. And this is the same as we did in the other demo for making our site. And now we'll do the opposite here. So we'll hide everything else except the nav mesh. You have to keep the collection visible too. We'll select that, and we'll go to File, Export, GLTF. And we'll change the name to nav for nav mesh. And again, include visible objects. The animation information doesn't matter. And we'll hit export. And now these two files can be added to the site you already created on GitHub, and that will update your scene to this scene. Hey, guys, Can you give me like, can you guys not talk right at the stairs? Can you go into the dining room? I'm recording stuff for my class.